One Piece is on one of its longest breaks in the history of its run, so let's take this opportunity to talk about the things in Wano we're still unclear about. We already made a video listing all of the mysteries in One Piece, but today we're going to bring up the Wano mysteries specifically and discuss them in depth. So since Levity is our expert on all things One Piece, I will be asking him the questions and he will be providing his answers. First of all, Levity, viewers want to know, will Usopp's toad, Gamma Pionosuke, join the crew?
When we were introduced to this lovable toad on top of Usopp's head, everyone clearly thought this is going to be our next crew member. However, as we've seen during the Wano battle, he really isn't being featured very prominently, so there's a fairly good chance that he's going to be left in Wano, or perhaps, like the octopus who joined them after Skypiea, be eaten.
So now why can't Hitetsu go to town?
Of course, this was never actually directly addressed, but we did learn later on that one of his weapons was the one that gave Kaido his epic scar. So it's possible that because of his friendship with the Kazuki clan, he is simply just an outlaw.
The next question is, where is Kietsu 1?
Kietsu 1 is still a mystery. The closest idea we may have to it is the fact that one of the 5 Elder Stars himself wields a weapon that looks markedly similar to the Kietsu 3, and is almost certainly the Kietsu 1.
And will we learn more about the unbreakable fabric?
Now, while this isn't a Wano question specifically, it's one that was gone over during a cover story during Wano. Unbreakable fabric is something that Bellamy is currently working with in the town of Dyed Goods. When he meets up with the Straw Hats once again to give them the flag he's designing for them, we'll probably learn a little more about this unbreakable fabric then, and perhaps he'll explain to us what makes it so unbreakable.
Why do Tama's dumplings work on Smile users?
We were told later on that these Smile users are made using bloodline elements, which is something Judge talked about. Apparently, bloodline elements is the word for DNA in this universe. So, most likely, Smile is used with actual animal DNA. When this animal DNA enters into a human in a Smile fruit that works correctly, the human DNA and animal DNA are fused, which is probably why their bodies recognize them as being animals when they eat one of Tama's dumplings, and they become her slaves, as any animal would. Now, the question we need answered is, would her dumplings work on a regular Zoan user? If so, that means that fake and real devil fruits were created and work in a similar manner to each other.
When is Toki from, and why did she want to go to Wano?
We did learn vaguely when she was from, apparently somewhere around the Void Century. However, we don't know exactly when she came from and what she was doing there. Now, she was originally from Wano, so the real question is, why did she leave? Apparently, at the time, she had some reason to leave this country, which is now very, very difficult to leave. So the question is, how and why did she leave? Perhaps she left before Wano's borders were even closed to keep the great outside force from getting in.
How did Hiori end up in her line of work?
Now, this is a question that we've kind of seen on screen explained. It seems like she kind of fell into it when she teamed up with Denjiro when he was in disguise. But honestly, I think that this is a cultural difference. I've heard some people mention that this position wasn't necessarily one that does the activities we may be thinking they do, but the manga seemed to indicate that that was the implication of her job as a Oiran, I believe the word is. I mean, obviously we don't see that in the series, so it's possible she could have just served as an entertainer at her job. Otherwise, perhaps it has something to do with ancient Japanese culture. Apparently, this position in society was a lot more dignified than most Western lands ever viewed it as being.
No, wait, hang on a second. She did literally say to Zoro, though, that a lot of men would pay a hefty price to sleep with her, so I'm pretty sure her job is clear.
And then I suppose it must just be that ancient Japan viewed this as a much more dignified job than we do.
Moving on to the next question, how'd the battle between Shanks and Kid go?
Well, this is another off-screen fight, and we clearly see that Kid did lose an arm from it. Maybe Shanks took it so that they would match. You know, I heard someone propose the theory that, oh, you know, you want to be like me, you want to be one of the Yonko, see how you handle it, and then he takes his arm. Of course, that presents a somewhat grim picture of Shanks, which I doubt Oda wants to do. We don't know for sure. Perhaps we will find Shanks to be quite sinister once we get to see him again. This fight might be one that remains permanently off-screen, unless Kid gets some point where he gets to have a dialogue with the main characters explaining what happened to him. I think we're just going to have to view this one as the way we view the fights between Aokiji and Akaino, and some of the other big fights that we just will never get to see.
What is the deal Orochi is trying to broker with the CP0, and how does he know Vegapunk?
Someone could have told him about Vegapunk. Kaido and his pirates are very world-wise. They know a lot about what's going on in the outside world. He might have wanted Vegapunk to ensure the continued supply of Smile, because he did ask for this deal right after Caesar was defeated and Doflamingo was defeated. So it's possible he just wanted to assure the continued flow of power into Wano. And of course, the world government, now without Joker, have to approach him directly if they want to continue to get their Sea Stone weapons that they've been receiving. Of course, we may never get to see his direct confirmation of his reasoning, since Orochi might be dead.
Why is King on fire, and what's his race?
Now this is one we definitely have no answer on yet. Apparently he's not Skypian, because Big Mom had seen Arouge fairly recently, so she would have probably commented on this differently. She acted as if she hadn't actually seen in the flesh anyone who looked like this. Arouge isn't on fire, neither are any of the other Skypians we've seen. So, although he is some kind of winged creature, we really can't say for sure at all what he might be.
What are the 3 missing races from Whole Cake?
Well, one of them is definitely Giants, as we saw during her arc. The other one is whatever King is, and I think Oda left the last one open because he intends on introducing us to an exciting new race at some point in the future.
What will Sobamas's new design be after Frankie and Usopp change it?
I don't really know what kind of style the 3 of them, who are absolutely very different in their way of dressing, would come up with. After all, Sanji does like refined, fancy things, so I'm sure he'll probably still want some sort of cape. Maybe something that gives him more of a regal attire. Usopp likes to wear overalls and work clothes, and Frankie likes to wear very little, so I'm excited to see what the 3 of them can cook up together.
What is the poneglyph in the flower capital Brook found? And where's the red one?
The red one that Kaido has is almost certainly somewhere in his castle in Onigashima. The one that Brook found, Robin did not get to see it, but so far in the series, any poneglyph that isn't super important to the plot moving forward isn't really mentioned what it says. She just reads it and is like, okay, I read the poneglyph. This one though, hopefully we get a big reveal like we did in Fishman Island. Perhaps it'll finally explain to us what's Uranus.
What's up with all the dolls in the poneglyph room?
Now, this is the one indicator that shows this room will be important later at some point, because Oda bothered to mention details about the room. So no doubt we're going to see Robin go down there at some point. Hopefully these dolls aren't just displays, but perhaps some sort of obstacle she'll have to overcome, perhaps traps, or maybe even enemies in disguise.
How was Beepo captured?
Unfortunately, it looks like we've skipped past that. Now, while we did ask this question about Beepo during our old video, honestly, I don't think this is one we're ever going to get an answer to. The Heart Pirates just did some things that really had no consequence on the story, so Oda decided not to show them, and I don't think he ever will, because now we know where the Heart Pirates have ended up, and we really won't get any more information on that.
How do you make a blade black?
Well, we've seen that people are able to temporarily dye their body or things attached to their body black using the power of Haki. So apparently, there's some way to infuse Haki into regular objects. Now, if this requires a forging process, we don't know. Of course, that's unlikely since it seems that Ryuma, the swordmaster, was able to do it single-handedly without having any knowledge of how to craft his own blades.
But there are people that say Haki doesn't have any color and is not visible.
Not necessarily, but we've seen visible displays of Haki that turn you black. For instance, the stuff all over Luffy's body when he goes into Gear 4th, or Virgo's entire body when he dyes it black to show that he's coated in Haki.
Some people say that's just a stylistic choice that Oda made in order to show people what is being used at the time, but it's not actually visible to the in-world people.
Now, that is possible, but we really haven't gotten a sure indication of that. But really, it seems that the ability to dye blades black is something that does come from the user itself, not necessarily a coding process or something else. If we're to believe the old Monsters one-shot where Ryuma is featured, Ryuma is not a brilliant man. He is very much like Zoro and Luffy in his doofiness. So the chances are he did not come up with some craftsmanship style that is absolutely brilliant. It's likely some kind of manifestation of his will or strength being put on display on his actual weapon permanently.
Why can that one fox turn into a guy?
Now, we haven't gotten a lot of information on this strange little creature. We did get some backstory for him, but we never got to see how he got this power. I've seen it suggested that this is a race of animal in Wano that can turn into people temporarily, but But really, we have no reason to believe that. We haven't seen any other animal do anything like this, and the animals in Wano seem to have somewhat similar qualities to each other. On the other hand, we do have precedents for animals turning into humans in Chopper, who definitely has a form of the Hito no Mi. So it's likely that this is a different form of that same fruit. Chopper's isn't the standard one. Chopper's is apparently some sort of model abominable snowman, so this person could have the one that's just model human. It's hard to say what kind it would be, but it's almost certainly the Hito fruit.
Was Drake the one who let Law escape, and why did he let Law escape?
Now at this point we've almost had it certainly confirmed that he was the one who let Law escape, although it hasn't been said directly. However, the question now is why? Is it simply because he believed Law and Luffy could take down Kaido, or that the fight would be fierce enough that enemies of the world government could be taken out? Some have suggested that he and Law do have a shared past. In their past, we often do see them overlapping in their stories. It's possible that they do have a personal connection that Drake would put his whole career on the line for, just to save Law.
What happened to Odin's father?
Now, obviously Odin's father is dead. I don't know if Oda just wanted to leave out how he killed his father, or if perhaps something interesting happened to him. I doubt it's going to be a serious plot point, but I left it on the list just because it's unclear.
What is the story of those two Kurozumi family members? How'd the guy die?
Kaido killed the female Kurozumi member who helped to influence Orochi, but the guy we never got a single word on. Of course, he looked like death, so chances are he died of old age, but we do know he's dead because someone else, that is Bartolomeo, currently has his fruit ability.
Why was Kanjuro a black blob in his flashback?
Some people have suggested that he was a black blob just so that Oda would not give away which of the 9 scabbards he was, because it was slightly before he actually introduced in the story which one it was. Other than that, it is possible that he did have a strange shape initially. Perhaps he did not look like the way he does now. Oda has implied that Kanjuro is now dead, so we might not know for sure. It might have been just a symbolic, stylized choice, showing that he was just a malleable mound of clay for Orochi to change to his will. Perhaps we'll get a more clear flashback on him later once we find out that Kanjuro really isn't dead and he comes back, which is almost inevitable.
What is the skull and giant sword in Onigashima?
This skull, if it's actually a skull of something, is the largest creature we've seen in the One Piece world by far. Apparently, ancient giants are tied to Wano. Chances are this is a living creature that used to exist in this country. If so, that sword almost certainly belonged to the giant creature whose skull now rests in the center of the island.
I just thought it was a rock shaped like a skull. Who's following Jinbei and Robin in chapter 979?
We still don't know this for sure. It was never addressed. Chances are we won't find out. It seems like a strange detail for Oda to have left out.
Why do Page 1 and Ulti cover their mouths? Are they really siblings?
In one of our other videos, one of the commenters explained that this is a thing that is in Japanese media a lot. Sisters treating their brothers like this, so they almost certainly are related. But why they cover their mouths, that's something we'll probably only learn from Ulti, as Page 1 seems to have no problem taking off his mask when he turns into his dinosaur form. Unlike Ulti, who even when in her full dinosaur form, still leaves her mask on.
What happened to Sasaki and Who's crew?
Initially, we thought their crews might have been destroyed, as was apparently Basil Hawkins when they were attacked by Kaido and forced to join the crew. We do get to see later on specific individuals from Kaido's army following those two specifically, so chances are their entire crew was absorbed into the Beast Pirates, and not just them alone.
Do Bao Huang and Who's Who have a connection with the island Chopper was sent to?
They bear the same eye symbol that everyone in the island also had, even though they are shaped nothing like the people from the island. It is interesting to see this symbol used once again.
Why is Bao's face covered?
It's possible she's covered because she was disfigured by her smile fruit, as most of the smile users were, and doesn't want to look like a horrible monster. But we also get to see another member of Who's crew with the same mask on. So perhaps, unless they are both smile users, perhaps it's a cultural thing?
What role will Big Mom play in the Battle of Wano?
Comic relief? No, just kidding. We still don't really know what she's going to play, because currently she was just knocked aside, but she seems like more of a constant obstacle for the Straw Hats than an actual opponent. It's possible she isn't even defeated this arc from what we've seen so far.
I don't know why and I don't know how, but I have a feeling she's gonna end up befriending at least some of the Straw Hats, considering how they treated her when she lost her memory.
True, that would be a weird plot point for Oda not to bring back, especially since it wasn't exactly one that left a great taste in many people's mouth. On the other side, Sanji did leave a great taste in her mouth, so perhaps she might find out the cake came from him, and that would cause her to want to be more on their side. After all, her life revolves around food, to the point where she'll even kill her family just to get it.
Just like me! What was Onigashima called in the past?
Marco did mention that Onigashima had a different name which is one of the many reasons why I think we're going to get a little bit of the history of this island before the arc is over, because clearly that name has some significance, and the name it used to have did too.
Did Orochi die? Or Kanjuro?
As One Piece fans, we all seriously doubt characters dying all the time. But Orochi's death does almost seem appropriate and timely. There wasn't a lot left to explore in his character. He was really just an annoyance. He was never really the actual threat, as directly addressed by the Scabbards later on. So it's possible he's died, but it's almost certain that Kanjuro did. We never really got to see an emotional resolution between him and the rest of the Scabbards, just a moment of them crying. It seems like there really is more to him. Even though he was only a weapon in Orochi's arsenal, seeing who he really was as a person is something I think a lot of the fans would like to see.
Who made the numbers? And where did Kaido buy them?
The timeline of when these numbers were made and bought by Kaido is over 20 years ago, because they were present for the battle against Odin. This is apparently before Vegapunk sided with the world government, and it's possible that these may have been early gigantification projects by Vegapunk himself, which would be another reason why Orochi is so familiar with his work.
Who are the remaining numbers?
Obviously, we've been introduced to a few of them, and no doubt the rest of them are going to be introduced in the following chapters. So that's really all there is to say about them.
What are ancient giants?
Urs is one of the ancient giants, but we still don't know a whole lot about them as a race. But considering what we said about the giant skull in Onigashima, clearly their race is closely tied to this country, and perhaps when we get some past on the country and that island specifically, we'll learn more about them too.
Unless it's just a rock. Why is that one tree sacred?
Yes, the tree that Big Mom destroyed was apparently a sacred tree in Onigashima, which is another reason why I think that this island has a very interesting history. Just these little hints that Oda is dropping about its past and culture.
What is Fukurokuju up to?
Randomly during the battle in Onigashima, he disappears, and one of the other samurai take notice of him wandering off to do something mysterious. A lot of people theorize that he's going to go help Orochi or bring Orochi back or something like this, but of course we have no way to know what he might be up to. We don't really know him that well as a character yet.
What is the Wisdom King?
I thought that this might be something important, but since the official translation of the manga just says that he looks like a guardian deity, perhaps it was a general term that Hyogoro was using to say, oh yes, he looks like our savior. But I'm still keeping an eye on this question because perhaps we will get more information about a Wisdom King or guardian deity that Wano once held dear.
Who has a 1% chance of survival?
One of the most likely cases is that he's talking about Drake specifically, since he was about to go watch Drake be executed, or so he thought. But we really can't say for sure. There's just so many people in this battle who have very varying chances of survival.
I still think it's about Kaido. What were Queen's bullets made from?
Drake commented on the fact that the bullets were made of something, and then he trailed off. Of course, some people have been speculating that they might be his mummification bullets, but I think because Oda trailed off, these were a different invention by Queen. Otherwise, he would have stated it directly. So these are almost certainly not the mummification bullets or sea stone bullets, but something else that Queen invented.
And finally, why is Perospero with Marco?
Logically, they are on opposite sides. Marco is with Luffy, who Perospero hates, but there are a number of reasons why they might be joining forces at this point. For one, Perospero does not want Big Mom and Kaido to join forces, and neither does Marco. So Marco could either have guilted him or threatened him into joining, but clearly Perospero doesn't want to help Luffy, so Marco may have very well left that out.
And that's it for the questions we still have to answer about Wano. What do you speculate about some of these?
Yeah, tell us below what you think the answers to these questions are. Of course, this is what we think is the most logical, but hopefully you have some interesting insight that we may not have even considered. And of course, we'll hopefully soon see the answers to these questions in one of the future chapters of One Piece.
Yo!
Gaigo! Hey there!
Don't leave without subbing.
Hey there!
Don't leave without liking.
Hey there!
Don't forget to comment.
Hit the bell! Hit the bell! Hit the bell!